What's up, everybody? Hope everybody's having a good Tuesday today. I'm going to do a quick little 10-minute video on the Eastern Conference Finals. It's kicking off tonight. We got the Boston Celtics hosting the Indiana Pacers. Boston, number one team in the East. Let's just dive right into it. No time wasted. Boston's been number one in the East all year, pretty much dominating. They have 64 wins, 18 losses during the regular season. And everybody right now, they're the prohibited favorite by far to make it out of the East, currently like minus 1,100 on FanDuel. And it's been pretty much the same thing since the playoffs started. Boston, like I said, only had 18 losses during the regular season and pretty much ran through the entire Eastern Conference. On the Bucks, Giannis ended up getting hurt. Lillard got hurt. They got eliminated in the first round. Joel Embiid had a couple different injuries. They ended up getting eliminated in the first round. And then the Miami Heat, who Boston faced in the first round, they were without Jimmy Butler that entire season, or not season, that entire series. So Boston, I mean, honestly, they've had a little bit of what you would like to call a cakewalk to the finals so far, definitely to the Eastern Conference Finals. It reminds me a lot of those LeBron Cavs teams running through the baby dinosaurs, destroying the Toronto Raptors up there in Canada. And it's very similar. You know, a lot of people aren't giving Indiana any type of chance to win this game. And it's for good reason. You know, like I mentioned, Boston, best record in the NBA, best record in the Eastern Conference. They actually beat the Pacers 3 out of 5 games this year. Round one, they went up against the Miami Heat. They won 4-1. But like I mentioned, no Jimmy Butler for the Heat. Tyler Hero kind of had to step up and play a lot more. And even then, a lot of people thought the Celtics should have swept them. Miami was able to squeak one out. And then round two, Boston went on to face the Cleveland Cavaliers. That series, they also won 4-1. And just like the first round, Cavs ended up being without their best player, Donovan Mitchell, who ended up straining his calf, I believe was after game 3. So 2 kind of easy rounds for Boston. No Jimmy Butler in round 1. No Donovan Mitchell in round 2 for the Cavs. And that kind of summed up how it went. It was pretty easy like the whole season. Jason Tatum's numbers are actually down from the regular season, but with those 2 kind of easy first 2 rounds there, it's not much that you would expect out of him. He is averaging 24 points and 10 rebounds, and Boston's defense has been second in the playoffs, only giving up 96.7 points per game. And a lot of that actually came without Kristaps Porzingis. He ended up getting hurt in round 1, but good news for Celtics fans, he's supposed to make a comeback this round. So Porzingis will probably be out games 1 and 2, but they're looking at like game 3 or 4, according to what everybody's saying in the NBA world and on Twitter. So it looks like he'll be ending up coming back, but you know, Boston definitely has the deeper team starting lineup. You got Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Drew Holiday, Derek White, Porzingis. You got Horford. You got Pritchard. You got Sam Hauser. You still have, I mean, who else you got off the bench? Tillman. They got a team, man. So Boston, the much deeper team, the much more talented roster, the much more experienced team. So you can see why FanDuel has them at minus 1,100 to win the series. And they're going to kick it off tonight, 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern in Boston. You know that crowd's going to be going crazy. And, you know, a lot of people have been talking about it. I've been talking about it on some different episodes. It's just a lot about how Boston's expected to make the finals. A lot of people consider it like a failure if they don't make the finals. And that's some of their numbers here you're looking at through the season, man. They've just been dominant. Celtics were second in scoring per game at 120.6 points per game. They're only second to who? The Indiana Pacers that they're playing, who average 123.3 points per game. Boston was second in rebounds per game at 46.3, number 1 in blocks at 6.6 per game, but a lot of that to Porzingis, who's going to be out the first 2 games. Number 1 in total 3-pointers made at 1,351, and number 2 in 3-point percentage at 38.9%. So you can see why Boston's a favorite. The stats back it up. When you look at the rosters, it kind of backs it up. So I expect them to go out tonight, get a win. It's going to be interesting to see how long the series goes. I already did a prediction video, so if you haven't checked that out, definitely go on to my Instagram or my YouTube or TikTok, whatever you have me on, and check out that prediction. But I'll give it away. I got Boston in 6, y'all. But let's talk about the Pacers first. So that's a little bit about Boston, what's going on with them. Number 1 team NBA, number 1 team in the East, number 2 in scoring, number 2 in rebounds, number 1 in blocks, number 1 in total threes, number 2 in three-point percentage. So the numbers are adding up. Like historically, if this was any other team, everybody would be like Celtics, it's a wrap. Denver's already been eliminated. All those heavy hitters are gone. There's no LeBron, no Steph Curry, no KD. It's kind of like, the C's are just open, wide open for Boston. And how ironic that the C's open up just like the C's, the Boston Celtics, are walking right through. But, Boston also has a history of kind of coming up short. In these last few years, they've been to the conference finals almost like every season. They were in the finals a couple years ago against the Warriors and ended up kind of blowing that lead. Andrew Wiggins, some say, outplayed Jason Tatum. So things are lining up for Boston. But let's talk a little bit about the Pacers. Let's go a little bit of why they might have a chance. They're on that Cinderella run. Indiana finished 6th in the East with 47 wins and 35 losses. So they've had to kind of jump from the bottom of the bracket. They were facing the Milwaukee Bucks in round 1, but the Bucks ended up with no Giannis. Lillard got hurt during that series. I think even Middleton might have missed a game or two, but Indiana squeaked by, got through the Bucks within 6 games. And then after that, they went on to the next round, just won 7 games, an absolute slugfest, just battle, 7 games against the New York Knicks, and they squeaked it out. And honestly, they might have got lucky to squeak that one out. Everybody on the Knicks was just going down left and right. No OG Anunoby. He got hurt during the series. Mitchell Robinson was out. Julius Randle was already out. Jalen Brunson fractured his hand in Game 7. So Indiana, yeah, they're like on an underdog run, but you got to include the context. There wasn't no superstars from the Bucks left, no Giannis, no Lillard. And then the Knicks, who were kind of not even as talented big name wise. Some people might say Halliburton, Siakam, Turner. Maybe that's a more talented 3 than, Brunson, DiVincenzo, and Hart, especially historically. But the Knicks were just giving it their all. Brunson was working the Pacers, but the Pacers, it's kind of that war of attrition. They stuck through. They battled it out. They got to Game 7. They had the least amount of people that went down during battle, and they were able to squeak it out. Can't complain. They're back here. Eastern Conference Finals, first time for Indiana since 2014. Those Paul George young Pacer teams back in the day against the Miami Heat. But, it's going to be a great opportunity for the Pacers to learn, see how it kind of goes. Tyrese Halliburton, their young star, kind of their main guy that they rely on. He's doing his thing. I'm trying to see it. He's averaging, here we go, 18 points and 8 assists a game. And he had 26 points in that Game 7 against the Knicks. A lot of people calling him a front runner on X or on Twitter. But, when you're winning, I guess that's what you do. But who talks when they're losing? Not Tyrese Halliburton, that's for sure. Pacers, man, they picked up Pascal Siakam in January. So for those of you that don't remember, maybe those of you not keeping up with the entire NBA season, the Indiana Pacers, they actually finished 2nd in the first ever in-season NBA tournament they had this year. They lost to the Lakers in that final. And then after that, a little bit of buzz, a little momentum was building up. In January, they went out and traded for Pascal Siakam, who's an NBA champion. They got him from the Toronto Raptors. And, on this playoff run, Pascal Siakam is the one actually leading the Pacers in scoring. So he's averaging 21.1 points per game. And kind of right now the main leader for the Pacers, especially on the scoring side. Halliburton's always that orchestrator, always that passer, but he has kind of been injured, Halliburton, with some different hamstring issues that lingered into some back issues. So he's not at 100%, just like almost nobody is in the NBA, so no excuse. But with that being said, Pascal Siakam, who they got in the middle of the year, major step up, has gone up and, pretty much done his thing. And he's kind of that wing that every NBA team needs. And for him, or for them to even have a chance against the Celtics. So if Indiana even wants a chance, if they want to make it 6 games, make it 7 games, Pascal Siakam is going to have big games on offense and on defense out at the wing. The Celtics have Tatum, they got Brown, they have a little bit of everything. And, without Siakam, it's not really going to be a chance for the Indiana Pacers to even go up against the C's. And if he doesn't play well, it's probably going to go 4 or 5. Same thing for Halliburton. But it's been a lot of just, war of attrition for them. Can they do it? Indiana, what they mostly rely on is just going to be the offense. So they're the number 1 offensive scoring team in the NBA, 123 points per game. They had the single most points in a game this season, 157 points, not once in a game this year, but twice. And they had the most games or the most assists in a game this year with 50 assists. So you can see that Indiana offense is potent, it's powerful, but I don't think it has enough defense to go up against the Celtics. The Celtics can score right up there with them. Like I mentioned, they're second to the Indiana Pacers in scoring a game, but they're a lot better defensively, not only name-wise, but just team-wise. The only thing I think that really can hold back the Celtics is going to be, just their mindset, just the mentality that sometimes they seem to get a little bit lackadaisical out there. But let's look at some quick head-to-head stats. Boston won 3 of the 5 matchups this year. All of them were crazy high-scoring games. On November 1st, Boston actually scored 155 points against the Pacers, and they averaged 129 points against Indiana. Indiana, no slouch themselves. They averaged 116 against Boston, but obviously, Boston looks like they're kind of playing with their food there. They'll just make sure they score more, but they know that they can stop Indiana. In those head-to-head matchups, Tatum's averaging 26 points, 8 rebounds, and Tyrese Halliburton's averaging a double-double, 20 points and 10 assists. I think Boston, like I mentioned earlier, they definitely have the offense to keep up with Indiana, but Indiana, they don't have the personnel or I guess not the makeup to play with them defensively. But, Celtics, they're pretty known for kind of playing down to their competition level. Obviously, only having 18 losses this year, that's kind of hard to agree with. But if you're an NBA fan and you keep up from year to year, in the playoffs, Boston will have these games where they look amazing, and then they'll come out the next 2 or 3 nights kind of lackadaisical. I don't know if they're falling asleep, if they're just hitting the snooze button, but they'll kind of fall off. And with Indiana's offense, man, you fall asleep for a little bit, they can just kind of push the throttle. They'll step on your throat. Indy can turn a 20-point run into 30. So, you got to watch out for Indiana's offense, and sometimes Boston just falls asleep a little bit. I don't know if it's their stars, if it's the coach. I still think if Ime Udoka could have just, kept his cool a little bit better, if you know what I'm saying, when he was in Boston, they would be a lot better off. But Joe Mazzulla, young coach, Jason Tatum, young star. I think the Celtics are going to win the series, but they probably give up 2 games to Indiana and they take it in 6. I think their depth, their talent, it has pretty much everything to get them to the finals. Indiana, I hate to say it, but not much of an opponent, especially not in the Eastern Conference Finals. Probably one of the weaker final opponents. No offense, Indiana. I'm sorry, guys. But I'm going with Boston in 6. I think the depth, the talent, just all of that's a little bit too much for Indiana. I think Indiana does squeak out maybe 1 game in Boston and 1 game at home just off of sheer offensive performance. And, the Celtics shoot a lot of threes, so they have a couple of those a series where, they just don't fall in. But drop a comment. Let me know what you think. Celtics in 6. I'm going to drop a preview for the Western Conference Finals, so stay tuned for that. But if you got the Celtics, let me know. And if you really think the Pacers can beat them, drop a comment and just tell me how, because I don't see it happening, y'all. But thanks for tuning in. Let's go Celtics. Can't believe I'm saying that.